Welcome to Ukraine, where we're going to learn as much as we can about this amazing nation that's filled with people like you and me, ones with hope, family, and opportunity in mind. But before we get into the nitty-gritty facts of Ukraine, I better introduce myself. How's it going, everybody? My name is Dave Walpole, and welcome to FTD Facts, the channel where we look at people, cultures, and places from all around the world. And now, I'm excited to learn about Ukraine. I think it is a beautiful nation and it's got a lot going for it. Now, that being said, if you're new here on FTD Facts and you want to learn about new countries and new places around the world, well, hit that subscribe button and join us here every single Monday where we look at a new country from any place in the world. But with that, I'll talk about that a little bit later because right now, we got to talk about Ukraine. Now, probably the first and foremost question is, how do you pronounce this country's name? Is it Ukraine or is it the Ukraine? Well, that's actually just a really good question. So firstly, if you were to say the Ukraine, you might get some people that are going to look at you in a very negative way. It's actually pronounced Ukraine. Now, why would the be considered negative? Well, at one point, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and back then, that's when people from other parts of Russia pretty much called Ukraine the Ukraine. And now that it's its own independent nation, you probably should just call it Ukraine out of respect to the people who fought for their own independence. Am I right? Which, by the way, it was August 24th, 1991 when Ukraine got its own independence, and this was pretty much after the fall of the Soviet Union. Goodbye, Berlin Wall. But I find it very amazing how a three-letter word called THE could mean something so negative sometimes. Of course, there might be some of you guys out there who are from Ukraine who are like, nah, it doesn't really matter, it's totally okay. But some people might be like, yeah, no, we are not the Ukraine. So Ukraine is also a very important country in all of Europe. Now, I'm going to get into some of those details shortly, but let's be real. One thing that Ukraine has is a large military, but more importantly, it's a rather fertile country. And I don't mean like, the women are fertile, like they're getting knocked up and having babies all the time. As a matter of fact, that's a little bit, quite the opposite because they have a decreasing population. I mean, like the country has very fertile soil. But speaking of population, let's look at how big Ukraine actually is. In terms of population, it sits at the 32nd largest country in the world, having a population of around 42,418,235 people as of a 2017 estimate. Now, like I said, it's a declining population because in 2001, the census stated that the country had about 48 million people within the country. So why the decline? Well, first of all, high death rates and low birth rates. At one point, Ukraine had its peak population at over 52 million people in 1993. By the year 2016, its population had dropped to over 18%. And with that, in 2018, it was reported that there was approximately 11.1 deaths for every 1,000 people, while only having 9 births for every 1,000. As well, there have been losses of territories from conflicts like Crimea and Donbass that led to a population decrease. And with that, I don't really want to get into the dark sides of Ukraine. I mean, every country has its dark moments. Canada, the United States, France, they've all had some terrible things happen to them. So I'm going to skip that because while we're on the topic of size, let's talk about land size. Basically, the country sits at 45th roughly in the world, coming in with a rough approximate land size of 603,628 kilometers square. Now, there might be some people out there who might say that's not accurate because of territorial loss, but yeah, okay, that's true. Also, currently, Ukraine, when it comes to land size, it has 2 titles that make it a little bit confusing. First of all, it's the second largest European country, but with that, it is the largest country that is wholly in Europe, meaning that the whole country is within Europe. I mean, Russia is big, but not all of Russia is within Europe. There's, the East, which doesn't really count. Sorry, Russia. And like I said, when it comes to this land, it is extremely, extremely fertile. How fertile is it? Well, they say over 56% of the entire land within the country is fertile soil. On top of that, there is about 2% that is used for permanent crops and 13% used for permanent pastures, and 18% of this is forest and woodland, while 9% is classified as other. For worldwide arable land alone, it comes in at third in terms of country percentage, but it comes in at 10th in overall with a total arable size of 338,619 kilometers square. And you might be thinking, with all of this arable land, what kind of stuff do they actually produce, like vegetables, that sort of stuff? Well, the most profitable thing that they produce that is grown in the ground is sunflowers. Yes, I know, it seems weird. Whoever thought the sunflower would be a really buyable thing? Well, it's oil. For example, it's number one in the world for sunflower oil, giving approximately 4 million tons of it a year. It's also the third exporter in the world for barley, fourth for corn, and sixth for wheat, and seventh for soybeans. For its sunflower oil, China is actually the biggest buyer of this product. Also, a little under 60% of the soybeans that come from the country are under a company known as Danube Soya. Oh yeah, and when it comes to the soil, just so you guys know, yeah, it's not only all over the place, but it's really thick. Some areas, it's like 5 feet thick. That is a lot of black soil. I am 5'8", guys. Think about it. It's like my head is I would be, you know what I mean? If I was planted into the ground. Considering we were on the topic of food, did you know that Ukrainians came up with the idea of eggs for Easter? Well, at least that's what they like to say. It's a bit of a bizarre thing to do during Easter now that we think about it, but it is known as Pysanka. And back in the day, instead of coloring them like we do now, what they would do is cover them with wax resin and then dye them. And although there have been fragments of these shells found in Poland from ancient times, no remains from these periods were found in Ukraine. That being said, Ukrainians believed in Dazbo, which was the sun god, and they decorated their eggs to that. Which actually kind of means the whole painting of an egg predates Christian rule. That's right. You could almost say it's a bit pagan. That's right. Sorry, Christians. During that time, for Ukrainians, birds were considered the chosen creature of the sun god. And during that time, also, humans could not catch birds. And they honored them by taking their eggs, which meant rebirth of the earth or nature, which also coincides with spring. And that's kind of how the Christians were like, hey, wait, they're doing this around the same time. We're just going to take it, and it's with us now. Did you know that Ukraine was the first country to ever have an official constitution? That's right. In today's world, Ukraine is listed as a unitary semi-presidential constitutional republic, meaning that it has a president and prime minister. As a matter of fact, the president is voted for every 5 years, and their parliament is called Verkhovna Rada with over 450 seats, which means some of the decisions or most of the decisions within the government has to be approved by both the president and the prime minister and the cabinet. But back to this world's first constitution, it was known as the Constitution of Philip Orlik, which was introduced in 1710. It was the first constitution that also outlined rights of the government and its people. Which is kind of crazy because, you know, when you look at Americans who are like, yo, that's our constitution, but Ukrainians are like, well, ours is really old and we've had to change it a couple of times because we know it's outdated. Yeah. Considering we are on the topic of constitutions and governments, let's talk about the capital for just a second. Known as Kiev, it has a population of 2.8 million people, at least estimated. Following that, there is Kharkiv, which has 1.4 million people, and Odessa with over 1 million people. And although the city of Lviv may come in at 7th largest with a population of 732,000, it's actually cafe capital of the entire country, as they have over 1,500 cafes. That's insane. And last but not least, probably my favorite thing to talk about of every single country is how well countries, its culture, and people preserve its own culture and traditions, both culturally and naturally. I know I said culture a lot there, but you'll see why. The reason for this is Ukraine is a country that has 6 cultural and 1 natural UNESCO World Heritage sites. As a matter of fact, Lviv city center is considered one of these, which has been around since the Middle Ages. And it's not gonna stop there because currently, and I'm actually really surprised at this, because Ukraine has 16 sites on the tentative list, which is really high. So you might see more UNESCO World Heritage sites popping up in the next couple of years. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. My name's Dave Walpole. Did you guys have fun learning about Ukraine? Now, okay, yeah, this has been a rather short video. You can't put everything into the video. And if you guys want a part 2, be sure to hit that like button. With that, if I missed any facts, feel free to leave it down there because I love you guys. If you guys are from Ukraine and, you know, you want to teach some other people, I would say look down in our comment section so you can learn something from some people who might be from there or have visited from there. And with that, before you guys get out of here, our next video we're going to be talking about next Monday is going to be the great and beautiful country of Romania. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and that bell notification and come back every single Monday. That also being said, you can check out the playlist right here, guys. It's up above my head. It's also in the description box below. It'll be at the end of this video. But my name is Dave Walpole. Thank you guys for tuning in and hanging out with me. And I hope you all had a beautiful time learning about Ukraine. See you in the next video. Bye. All right, so you made it to the end of the video. Well, here is that playlist I was telling you about. If you want to also maybe just learn about some cool military stuff, we also do that as well. So there's a military playlist just on military aspects of different countries, and there's just the stuff on the countries themselves. So check them out. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.